Hello, everyone, and welcome to BodyBags. I'll be your reviewer for today. I'm Lonnie from Tats, and yeah, I'm sure you've seen this week that we're doing. This is the theme week for us, and this is love of independent film, and you know, and I think that this definitely qualifies. It does, in my opinion. The one that I'm reviewing today is from 2013. It was actually developed as a web series for Fearnet.com, and just I just really I was looking forward to this, and I really wanted to talk about it. I'm talking about Tom Holland's Twisted Tales, which is pretty much it was a web series, and they pretty much ended up compiling it onto a DVD and turning it pretty much into a horror anthology. And when I say Tom Holland, I'm not talking about the Spider-Man kid. I'm talking about the man, the myth, the legend. You said, behind Child's Play and Fright Night, and wrote Psycho 2, arguably one of the best horror sequels ever made. And there are people out there that actually prefer Psycho 2 over the original. May not think so, but there are people out there and they actually do consider that. But also too, he had directed for Masters of Horror. We All Scream for Ice Cream, and two Stephen King adaptations. Thinner and The Langoliers and everything. So this is the Tom Holland of which I speak, and he serves as basically the uh, he basically serves as kind of like a narrator, kind of crypt keeper sort, and he introduces each tale. And the majority of them are very, very short. Now, this entire series runs 142 minutes, but when you consider, there are was it? I'm sorry, I had to take notes this time. 'Cause 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, there are 9 stories total, and the majority of these are actually pretty short. They're small stories. I would say the longest one would be the eighth story called The Pizza Guy, but we'll get to that in just a minute. So, but the thing was basically this it was an independent production. The idea was Fearnet wanted content, and they went to Tom Holland, and him being the master of horror that he is, that they asked him to go ahead and start working on this horror series and everything, and it was pretty much completely independent. And even though the budget wasn't very big, and you will definitely notice that when you watch these episodes, you see the budget wasn't very big, but I do believe that the entire idea was to pretty much just leave Tom Holland alone and just let him do whatever he wanted, and let him write whatever he wanted to write, let him make whatever he wanted to make. And I think that's pretty much what happened, as long as he worked within the time and the money that he had available to him. So um, and he ended up making some good stories here. And a lot of these are kind of very. You could tell that Tom Holland, by watching these, you could definitely tell that he has a love and affinity for the old, kind of like the old series, the old anthologies, things like Twilight Zone and maybe Outer Limits, yeah, and stuff like One Step Beyond, things like that. The Veil, things like that. And the stories, like the first one is, sorry, yeah, I gotta look down at my notes. The first story is called Fred and his GPS, and that one. Another thing is too is there's actually for a very very low budget, very small low budget series, there is actually a pretty impressive cast. I mean, this does have kind of the name of names of who are doing horror films around the uh, I mean, you don't have any like like older veteran. Unfortunately, there's no like Sid Haig or Bill Moseley or Tony Todd, Ken Free, nobody of that ilk. But you did have pretty much the up and comers who were the horror stars in the 2000s. Um, in this first story, Fred and his GPS, the story is about a man who is he just murdered his wife, and he's driving in his car. He's trying to make his getaway, and he starts talking to his GPS system, and then he starts going insane, and he thinks that it's actually talking back to him. And the actor in that one was A.J. Bowen, who was in a number of horror films in the 2000s. It was like You're Next, that god awful Creepshow 3. He was in House of the Devil, um, so many others. I can't. Hatchet 2, he was in Hatchet 2. But yeah, he was definitely, a mainstay of horror in the 2000s. And, but let's just say, like, yeah, in that story, he's losing his mind and, he's grappling with the fact that he just murdered his wife. And we'll just end it by saying it doesn't particularly end well for him, so I don't want to give the stories away. And the second story is called To Hell With You, which this is definitely a tried and true um, horror story that we've seen done countless times in thousands of horror anthologies. And the story has Danielle Harris. I don't think I really need to go into any detail over who Danielle Harris is, and William Forsythe. Again, I don't really think I need to go into too many details of who he is. And the story is dealing with Danielle Harris's character. She finds out that her boyfriend is cheating on her, and that he, basically he doesn't love her. He thinks that she's awful and clingy and needy, and he doesn't want to be around her anymore. And which, yeah, I'm really sure. I just think it's funny that somebody. I just think it's funny that I'm sure maybe, but I don't know. But just just the idea that that there's a man out there that doesn't want Danielle Harris around, and that there's actually a guy out there who's oh, you're too clingy and needy, and you always got to be around me all the time. I'm really sure that there's so many men out there who would just hate the idea of having to be around Danielle Harris. I'm sure that that's a real thing. But anyway, getting back to the story. So anyway, so she's upset, and then she runs into William Forsythe, who, of course, the old tried and true tradition. He's all telling her, he's trying to seduce her in a way, and telling her like, hey, you're too beautiful of a woman, you're too special of a person to have somebody treat you that way and talk to you like that and everything. And it's like, hey, for a price, it's like you can get your revenge on him and everything. And of course, it would just cost your soul, that kind of thing. So, and I'll leave it there. I don't think I really need to go into too much more of that. I mean, we know these stories, we've seen them before, but still, it's just fun to get Tom Holland's take on these kind of stories. And then the third story is called Boom. That was actually a pretty good story. It's pretty unique, I think. And the story is Noah Hathaway, who, if you would remember, if you ever saw the movie The Neverending Story, that's pretty much the biggest movie that he's known from. He played Atreyu in Neverending Story. And in this story, he's basically like a bomb diffusing expert. And he calls his buddy over to his house, and he's, they're in his garage and everything else. And then, he he has designed this bomb and everything, and he's like, tell him, okay, like, just for the fun of it, I designed it just so we can try to, I was just bored, so let's just try to, see if we could defuse this thing and all this. And so there's like a hole for him to put his hand in. He tells his buddy, there's a hole in there, put your hand in through. And so he goes and he hits it, and then turns out actually what he did was he activated this bomb. And so, there's like 2 minutes, and he has to keep his finger on, this trigger. If his finger leaves it, and then there are these like metal ball bearings that, they rush and they ignite this C4 that's in there. And so he's like, what are you doing? Why are we doing this and all this other kind of stuff? And then, Hathaway's character is like, because I know that, you've been sleeping with my wife and all this other kind of stuff. And then, then we reveal that he's actually got his wife tied up in the garage. Now his wife is played by Sarah Butler, who you'll remember from, mostly you'll remember her from the 2010 remake of I Spit on Your Grave. And I'm trying to remember. And she was in I Spit on Your Grave 3. And I'm trying to remember. She was in some other movies, but I'm sure you know who she is. You remember her. And so, they're trying to explain to him that they're not having an affair and that it's all in his head and all this kind of stuff. And then, they need to defuse the bomb. And I think I'll just leave it at that. There are some interesting little twists and turns in that story that I think make it pretty unique and kind of special. But I don't want to go into it too much. I just want to, just leave it at that. And, so then the next one we get to is called Mongo's Magic Mirror. And this one here It's about this. He's an illusionist, and he's got his female assistant with him. And so they're walking down this back alley, and he's, talking about like there's this illusion, it's like we've seen this kind of story done too. We've seen it done before in like Vault of Horror and Tales from the Crypt and things like this. And he's like, there's this man, he's got this illusion, and and he's like, I want to try to see if I could, buy this magic trick from him so I can use it in my show. So he goes to this guy Mongo, who's played by Ray Wise. Ray Wise. RoboCop, Twin Peaks. Swamp Thing, so on. So yeah, like I said, you got a really nice assortment of name actors in this movie. And so he goes to him, and it turns out that Ray Wise's character possesses this mirror that can it's kind of like takes you into ultimate or alternate dimensions, and he's explained to them that the dimensions that you go into, it pretty much like it reflects your personality. So like the female assistant, she goes into it, and it's very sweet, and it's there's like a lot of pink, and there's like hearts and flowers, and just very sweet, very good natured, and all this other kind of stuff. And then when the illusionist, he goes in there, then it's almost kind of like Dune meets Beetlejuice in a way. It's almost like this desert wasteland where you got these like man-eating sandworms and things like that, and everything. Like I said, it's very like I said, it very much reminds you of like Beetlejuice meets Dune, kind of like that. So Glenn, if you're watching this, you might like that story. But anyway, so this guy decides he wants to buy this illusion from Ray Wise's character, and and Ray Wise is like, no, you don't understand. He's like, this can't fall into the wrong hands. The implications would be too bad, and everything. And so the guy gets greedy and decides he's going to, betray Ray Wise and everything else, and try to get this illusion from him. And then when the girl, she's like trying to get him to stop and everything, and so he ends up, betraying her too and everything, and they all end up in this alternate dimension inside the mirror. And I think I'll just let it go at that. You guys can finish watching the rest of it. So, and that was a pretty good story. It was an interesting idea. It was a new spin on a story that we've seen done before in horror anthologies and stuff. And Ray Wise, I've always liked him as an actor, and it's always good to see him in something. So I was happy, cool to see him again. And Digging Up the Marrow. I forgot he was in Digging Up the Marrow too. The next story we move on to is Bite. That's the one story I got to be honest. I feel bad because if any of these actors in this story are name actors, I don't know which ones they are. I'm not familiar. A couple of them look familiar, but I'm not really familiar with them. But it's about a group of five friends. Five friends. They end up getting this. They end up getting this new stuff called Bite. It's like a strain of weed, marijuana. Like I have to tell you what weed is. But anyway, so they just they all decide they want to smoke it and everything. They're, hey, this is the new stuff and everything else, and let's get into this and everything else. Well, of course, out of the five, there's one girl. She's like, I'm sorry, I'm not into smoking pot and everything. But in this one case, she takes a hit off of it, or well, she doesn't take a hit. She gets like a kind of like a contact high, while the others are smoking this pot, and she gets this hallucination of seeing that everybody is turning into werewolves, and people are, being killed and all this kind of stuff. And it's like pretty much like werewolves are taking over the world and stuff like that. And then she comes out of it, and it's one of those kind of stories where it's like, they have a premonition of something, and then only to find out that, the premonition is going to come true. And so we'll just leave it right there. And but the next one we got is Shockwave. That one, you have James Duval, who's been in a number of movies, and shows, and he's in American Nightmares, and the Doom Generation. That's probably, I think, the biggest thing he's mostly known from, and just plenty of movies and shows and stuff. And you have Angela Bettis, who oh man, we all know who Angela Bettis is. I don't think I really need to explain who she is. And then it's they're these friends are all together. They're having a dinner party, and then it turns out that there was like an explosion in space, and that the shockwave is going to, pretty much rip through, and basically it's going to signal the end of humanity. And so this, you start off with this group of these civilized people who, of course, they ultimately turn on each other when they realize that there's, that they're at the house of Angela Bettis and her husband's character, and then they realize that like he built basically a panic room in case if something should ever happen, but the room is only big enough to fit two people, and so it turns into a very big struggle for survival, and who is going to get to be in this panic room and who's going to survive and who's not, and everything else. And so yeah, it's 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 a staple of the horror anthology, but it has enough. I feel it has enough unique things going on in it that you can look at it for its own thing, and it's like it's not too not too just like it just feels like I've seen this a zillion times before. And then the next one we have is called Cache. This one I thought was a pretty fun and interesting story. This one is definitely about how modern technology can get us. The story is about a guy who he steals this. Basically, it's like a haunted iPad, you know, and he gets this iPad and he finds out that that there's this murderer who if anybody picks up this iPad, it's like a ghost or a demonic force or whatever you want to call him, and he stalks the person who picks up this iPad, and is like he closes in and closes in on him, and until he gets him. And so that's the thing, and he's just like always waiting, and then whenever somebody gets their hands on it, as soon as they touch it, it's like now this evil murderous force is coming for him. So that was a pretty good story. I like that one. That was good. And then we get to the long story. It's called The Pizza Guy. And really the only, I'm not saying the other actors didn't do anything, but the one I recognize the most is Marc Center, who you remember from movies like Starry Eyes and The Lost and Wicked Lake, and he's been in a number of things, and he's kind of over the top. He isn't like, he's kind of very known for his like really over the top characters that he plays, and he's very much so in this. But you have this group of friends that are hanging out, and it turns out that this one girl, her sister died recently, and she's basically she's in the middle of the floor. She's drawing a pentagram, and she's using a grimoire. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but like a book to summon demons so that she can try to contact the other side so she can speak to her sister again. And then Marc Center's character shows up, and everybody's thinking that she's gone crazy, but she's constantly like trying to convince everybody that Marc Center's character is the devil, but he's denying it. Everybody's thinking she's crazy and all this kind of stuff. But is she? Is she crazy? But this one here, it takes the longest, but it's a good story. It's pretty well done. I think even though like the Marc Center being kind of acting loony, that was a bit much. But and then so finally we get to the last story, which I can't really it's called Vampire's Dance, but here's the thing: is like nothing. I have to say, it's kind of like if there was a disappointing story in this whole thing, that would probably be it. However, though, if Tom Holland, the creator of Fright Night, if it kind of is a nice little callback to Fright Night, but overall the stories are they're well written, they're well directed. Holland, he's a good, talented writer director. I would say if there was, he's got a nice cast in here. I told you a number of the actors and actresses in this. So you got a nice assortment of actors and actresses. You got good writing, good directing. I will say if there's one thing that really sinks this thing, it's the CGI. The digital effects are they are so amateurish and they are so horrendous. It's pretty close to taking you out of it. But if you can get past that and just try to, get past the technical aspect of it and just try to let the story take you in, you'll have a good time with it, and you'll just enjoy it. And I did, just like I said, just oh wow, the CG, you could tell it's very low budget, it's very independent, and it's just it just looks bad. But I just figured though, since this was Tom Holland, getting a chance to, that's the thing. We're talking about independent film, and even though this was done as a web series, the idea they gave him, they gave him the chance, and say, hey, we'll make a show for you, and all you gotta do is, you have this much money to work with and this much time to work with, and everything, and you just, do what you want, and that's what he did, and it was completely, his own independent work. So, but anyway, yeah, I definitely say, give it a shot. Like I said, the CGI is really god awful and stuff, but if you can get past that, they're good stories, good acting, and I think it's worth it. So that's it. So if anybody took the time to watch this, I thank you for doing it. I appreciate you for doing it. I honestly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, would you please leave a like? And if you haven't already, go and subscribe to the BodyBags channel. We have a different reviewer, one for every day of the week. I am the Saturday reviewer. Everybody's doing wonderful, and I'm glad to be in this company. And that's it, everybody. So take care. Have a good night, and I'll see you later.